Today, before I introduce our mystery guest, this is one of the most important topics that has been an extreme challenge to me in my own personal life. The way I treat Saptarishis astrology is a journey in astrology to understand one's karma and to correct oneself. Like children, it's not possible to continuously correct ourselves of our shortcomings. So we require incidents and instances and people and videos like this to help us understand some corrective tools. Astrology, no doubt, is a journey of self-correction and not a science of just predictions. But in that self-correction is the upays, the remedies, helping us becoming better human beings and improving our karmas. One part is what I've realized. 50% of your karma, or maybe more, is erased or subdued or reduced if we do this one act. And it is, and I can swear with the last 2 years of my life, it is the toughest act ever that has gotten to me, which is forgiveness. There are two components to this: forgiving others and forgiving oneself. And both are extremely difficult. And the last one of forgiving yourself is the toughest, because the DNA of it is very much deep in subconscious mind. Today, we have a great man who has earlier come on our channel, and he rocked the show with his life story. He showed us that glimpse in his life of what happened to his life and how he has forgiven or probably forgiven and forgotten those things. We are going to take this discussion to a theoretical level, then understand that theory, and then take it in the next part into a practical level. So without wasting much time, let's welcome the one and only guy who rocked our show and showed us what life can be, the ups and downs. Swami Ji, Swami Satmanand Ji, please welcome to Saptarishis Astrology. Pranam, sir.
Pranams, Om. I'm very happy to be here again.
Thank you for coming. And I'm so sorry, we have planned this last year, June, and now it's probably March. We are finally getting to do this.
Yes.
I wish I was traveling with you all over the world. We would have created so many videos of Gyan and wisdom from you.
Yeah. Well, everything happens at the right time, so.
Everything for the right time. I presume you're in Berlin right now?
I'm in Berlin, yes.
You're teaching Vedanta over there?
Vedanta and related topics. I mean, it's not easy for people to come to Vedanta, so we talk about karma and Vedas and some basic things before we get to Vedanta. And then I have some students that are very highly qualified, so with them I'm doing the Upanishads and things like that.
Upanishads are very tough actually.
Yeah. So that is my biggest focus, is teaching Upanishads right now.
So you'll be in Berlin till May, I presume?
I will be, next month I'll be going to Portugal for 3 weeks, and then I come back to Germany.
Okay.
I was just in Bonn last week, and yeah. And then I go back to the US on 3rd of May.
3rd of May. So I presume I see you on the 3rd of June when I come to Salisbury.
Absolutely. I'll be there.
We're going to have a wonderful time over there.
Yeah.
Wonderful time. And this time, I'm going to take a discussion on a particular Upanishad with you. I want to learn.
Fantastic.
I don't know whether it should be Ketu Upanishad, because that is so tough. I can't understand it actually.
Yeah. Katha and Keno are brilliant, are really brilliant Upanishads, which we can do.
Okay, let's do that, sir.
Yeah.
Swamiji, I mean, I felt, of course, we had this discussion last year on the various topics that we should discuss that can help astrology students and astrology enthusiasts also heal their life. This area of forgiveness, I feel you're the best person to teach us. Before we go deeper into it, why do humans fall into this test of forgiveness? Why? Why do we fall into that test?
Okay. First of all, we must understand that we as humans are born to make mistakes. Actually, I'll rephrase that. We as humans are here to learn, period. And because we're here to learn, we learn by making mistakes. If you say that you're a perfect person, you make no mistakes, that means you're not growing. If we take an exam in grade school, in standard school, or in our SSC as you do it in India, we would not know how much we have studied and how much we have not. Supposing we do take a test and we fail, that failure actually makes us understand what we don't know. The correct marks, usually, if we get it correct, we don't remember it as well.
So true.
You see, so in order to remember the lessons that we need to learn, we have to make mistakes. In fact, making mistakes is part of being human. So you see, if you most of the times when we look at our culture, when we look at our lifestyle, we are constantly trying not to make mistakes. We're trying to avoid making mistakes. When I was in college, one of the things I learned is that I could try many things because it is only by making mistakes I can learn. You see, if you don't make mistakes, you won't learn. So I would do things that were not right. Just to give you an example, I was head of the elections committee in college. I knew that whatever I did in college, I could get away with it because it's a college environment. And so one of the things that happened was that I sort of sided with one person that I favored in politics. And I wanted to see what would happen. And of course, there was repercussions of that. But being in college, being in school is a testing ground. When you come in real life, you cannot afford to make those mistakes without serious consequences. When you're a child and you have parents, you can afford to make mistakes. The parents are there to back you up. Okay? But at the end, what we need to understand is that as a human being, it is important to make mistakes. And in fact, it's unavoidable. I hear many discussions, sometimes people say, you know, I do this and I do that and I don't do this and I don't do that. And essentially what they're trying to say is that they don't make mistakes or that they are perfect human beings because they do everything right or they are good people. You know, the problem with that is that you don't learn, you don't grow. Okay, so the very fact that we are prone to making mistakes, which is part of human nature, it means that the very essence of making mistakes is that there is hurt and there is harm. When I make a mistake, somebody is going to get hurt. Somebody is going to be harmed. Then at that point, we have to learn to say, okay, what do we do with that? In this case, I have to take ownership of my own mistakes. I also have to be very shrewd to understand to not take ownership of other people's mistakes. And this is a really hard lesson to learn. Somebody is upset. A loved one is upset. They are upset for their own reasons. I need to know not to take ownership of that. Are they upset because I did something? Then I take ownership of it. You see the difference there?
I I would like to go back to your earlier statement where you said that we must learn, we must accept that we are humans and we are going to make mistakes.
Yes.
The problem today is, let me even take my own example. I don't like to accept my mistakes. In fact, I go with this scared feeling of not to make mistakes at all. I'm always trying not to make mistakes. Whereas you mentioned in your college days, you on purpose did a mistake so that you could understand the value of it. But we humans, I have never found anybody who on his own voluntarily ever accepts his mistakes.
Yes, we don't, mostly because we're insecure and we don't understand the greater ramifications of it. You see, we are afraid to not make mistakes because we're raised that way. Our parents tell us good boy, good girl, bad boy, you know. And so what happens is that bad boy, bad girl training carries over into our adulthood. Okay, we don't want to be bad people. We don't want to be bad human beings. And we equate that badness with our mistakes or making mistakes. However, if we really understand that the only purpose of a human life is to learn and grow, then we have to look at our life as an examination test. And in that examination test, there are some parts we're going to get correct. And in some parts, we're going to get crosses. In some cases, we get a tick. In other places, we get a cross. In those crosses is where we grow. We don't grow when the answers are correct. And I knew this as in my childhood, that I needed to learn from every mistake. For some reason, I just knew that. And I took every opportunity in my life to grow from my mistakes. Of course, during that time, I had a lot of guilt with my mistakes. And sometimes I still do till today when I make a mistake. But then I am also cautious about understanding what benefit did it have. So today, if I'm going to do this now with my understanding, I would not make a deliberate mistake that would cause hurt. You see, if you make a mistake and there's no harm done to anyone, meaning, and when I say harm, that means you do not harm the environment, you do not harm the plant life, you do not harm other creatures, they're all God's creatures, and you do not harm other human beings. But most of all, you do not harm yourself. So if you make a mistake where no harm is done in all of those categories, then it is perfectly fine. It's okay. If you do make mistakes and you hurt any of those categories, you need to go and apologize. You need to learn and find a way to take ownership of that mistake and then seek forgiveness. And like you correctly put it, there are two categories of forgiveness. There is forgiveness of others, and then there's forgiveness of ourselves. And we'll talk more about that later. But I just wanted to give a little summary on that.
In the last statement, you said we need to go and we need to go and seek forgiveness. Okay. Now, it so happens in life, people, when they grow old, they realize how they treated their brother or parents, or some old school friend or old college friend or an old business associate. Now they are no longer either in touch or those people are not alive. Okay.
Yeah.
Or like the common situation that happens to boyfriend, girlfriends these days. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there is no opportunity to seek forgiveness. The other person is
Correct.
non-communicable or just not in touch. Now, what do we do in such situations?
It's a brilliant question. Here's why. When you seek forgiveness, really, this is the most important point to understand. When we seek forgiveness, it's not for someone else's benefit. Okay? We have to thoroughly understand this. Seeking forgiveness is not only for that someone else's benefit. It is really for our own benefit. It is the greatest gift you can give to yourself by seeking forgiveness. Okay? And there is a greater ramification of this. You see, when we seek forgiveness from ourselves, we are breaking the shackles, the pain, the bondage, the chains that hold that person with me. So if there was some harm done by me or by them to me, there is a chain, it's a bondage, it's a shackle. And that shackle, it's what I would call it is a karmic shackle. It's a karmic bond. And every transaction of pain and hurt is a karmic transaction. It's a karmic bond. And if we understand that that is a karmic bond, then the question is, how do I break these chains? Because when I feel hurt, pain, anger, vengeance, these are all chains that hold me to that person. If someone has done me harm and I'm really angry towards that person, that is a bondage, a karmic bondage that ties that person to me. Now, how do we find a way to break that bondage? Okay, and the only way, I shouldn't say the only way, one of the most effective ways to break that bondage is through forgiveness. You see, when I say, why is it a karmic bondage? Because I don't know what I might have done to that person before. If somebody hurt me today, okay, like I talked about my family, okay, I just gave up my inheritance to my brother, right? What did I do to him before? Maybe I did the same thing to him. Maybe I did the same thing to my loved ones. Maybe I did the same thing to my relatives. So every transaction, in Sanskrit we say vyavahara, every vyavaharic transaction or every transaction that we have with anyone is based on our actions, karma. And because it is based on our karma, there is phalam for it. Okay, that phalam has to come back. And when the phalam comes back, how do we respond to it? Do we keep it going? Or do we have the wisdom to take a moment and break that transaction? So let me put it more crudely with an example. Supposing you kill me in this lifetime. Okay, next lifetime I come and I'll do the same. When do we stop this cycle? Because you do it, I do it, you do it, I do it, you do it, I do it. Till when? You see, the act of killing each other will continue until one of us, not both of us, until one of us decides to break that chain.
Break that chain. I really agree with this. And, let me divert the topic with some astrological combinations of this kind of hatred that goes in relationships. And I still remember reading Swami Rama. I think it is Living with the Himalayan Masters. Either in that book or some other book, there was this famous story of a butcher. And the butcher was trying to cut a goat. I'm sorry, I'm taking a very abstruse example. Finally, one goat talks back to the butcher and says, let's stop this. How many lifetimes we have played this game? You kill me, next life I become the butcher, you're the goat. And I think it was living with the Himalayan masters, if I remember it well. It's a
Right.
very famous thing. The spirit comes out from the goat and talks. Okay, it's been long. I think it's been 7, 8 years since I read it. So the point is, what I always tell, even to my spouse, and to my this thing is, it's not possible every time to break the cycle. But one of the easiest ways to break the cycle is to let go by seeking forgiveness, even if the other person in this life has harmed us. Because there is a chance that even if it is a 1% chance, that it can be an old karma instead of it being a new karma. And even if it is a new karma of that person harming us, okay, if we do not let go of the situation and forgive and forget, most important, forget, then there is a chance this will get repeated in the next life for me to take vengeance. So this is a great point. Speaking on this, my next question to you, Swamiji, is, have you seen in your personal sessions, healing and personal life, you have traveled all over the world, you have been talking to so many people, teaching to so many people, working with so many people, helping them grow spiritually. Have you seen that the act of forgiveness, if done from heart, it kind of almost breaks the karma? Have you seen it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In my own lives and in people's lives. You see, there's a saying in English, I think, and it says you have to look at the forest and not the trees. And if you say that, what that also implies is that when we look at an individual act, we're looking at the tree. If we back off and look at the forest, we see the entire landscape. When we are limited in our vision, we get focused and trapped by that anger and hurt and pain. However, if we step back and say, look, this is a play. I think William Shakespeare put it very well. He said, the world is but a stage of men and women. And the fact is, it is a stage from our Vedantic teaching and understanding. The world is nothing but a play. It's a script. Okay, so when we watch a movie, for instance, we see evil and goodness happening at the same time. Okay, if we went to a movie and everybody was happy and everyone was right, it would be the most boring movie ever.
Okay. If all were heroes, I mean, what's there in that movie? So God,
exactly.
God is the best director and the best script writer.
Absolutely. So there has to be great evil for a great hero to emerge. I mean, it's the great evil that makes the greatest hero. Okay. If there was no evil, there would be no heroes. Okay. And so in this play, in our daily play, in our daily transactions, everything is meant to allow us an opportunity to learn. Okay. And forgiveness, understanding forgiveness is simply by understanding the karmic play, our understanding of the karmas that are involved. And not only, frankly, you can understand many things, but you can't understand the details. But you can chalk it up to say, hey, I might not have, I don't know what I did in the past lives to have this situation come to me. But you learn to accept, because forgiveness doesn't happen without acceptance. Okay.
Accept
you
what?
Have to accept the situation.
Accept the situation, or accept that it's a karmic play, or both.
Exactly. What you are responsible for today, not in the past life and not in the future, today, what you are responsible for is how do you behave? How do you act? And how do you respond to difficult situations? How do you respond to hurt? How do you respond to pain? Okay. Now, in order to have this understanding, we have the great tools in our tradition. One is the Bhagavad Gita. It is the greatest story with the greatest worst case scenario. That's how I present it. And if the whole point of Bhagavad Gita, which is not very taught very well, is to teach us how to respond to situation in a dharmic way. You see, once we understand this situation on how to respond, then you become confident about the ownership of your own actions, of your own commissions and omissions. That means of all your mistakes. When you are confident that you have not made a mistake and the situations have come up, then you know there is no reason to be upset about it. And even if you have made a mistake, that's okay. Because as a human being, we are bound to make mistakes. You take ownership, forgive. When you say you're forgiving that person, the person might not be willing to accept it. It doesn't matter. That's their karmas. You have broken that chain. So when I travel around the world, one of the things I do is try to give people the understanding of the overall picture of the karmic play, and to understand the difference between you being in the movie, on the screen, or you being the audience. You see, when some people watch movies, actually it happens, especially if it's an action movie, a kung fu movie or fight. Some of the guys in the theater, you see their body moving, you know, they throw a punch, and it's so hilarious, actually. I mean, in America, I go to some theaters in certain segments of society, there are people who actually talk back to the screen, you know.
Oh.
And it's quite funny because you don't hear the dialogue, you see. But the point is, you see, if you are so absorbed in the movie, when you're watching it, it's one thing. A great movie, you find some people even crying in the movie.
Okay? I love that. I love to cry watching a movie.
Exactly. So that is a great movie because it has emoted, it's got you to emote a certain way. But when you're crying, are you crying out of sadness? Or are you crying out of happiness? You're crying because of empathy, that you have seen that thing and you empathize with that person who's going through that pain, right? When you come out, you say, that was a fantastic movie because you cried. Okay, karmic play, our transactions are the same. You can choose to be the audience, and this is what we Swamis are doing. The whole purpose of being a Swami is to actually detach from the screen and be our own way, to be the audience and watch the play. This detachment allows us not to get involved in the arguments or in the play itself. It doesn't mean that we do not emote. It doesn't mean we don't enjoy the movie. What happens is that our way of living is that we get into the movie. It's like we're getting into the screen and we want to fight, you know, because we think something is right. And our understanding really is to separate, to jump out of that screen and have a space between the screen and you. The space between the transactions of the world and you. And this is where acceptance comes in and forgiveness comes in. And this is the space where we start learning how to be and how to be right, how to behave correctly within Dharma. And so by understanding that, we also understand our actions. And then we understand other people's actions. And that's how we continue with our forgiveness. Kind of brought it back.
I would like to present a quote here of Lord Buddha, Gautam Buddha. That is, forgive others not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. You know, I think it's just so such a fascinating thing if you really ponder over it. And sometimes, you know, life has been very challenging to me, being born with Rahu Ketu in the karmic axis.
Yeah.
As they say in astrology, Rahu Ketu in the 1-7 axis is an extremely karmic axis, and especially debilitated nodes. So that's my horoscope. It gives me quite a dramatic life every 15 minutes or half an hour of my life is some drama happening on social media or here or there. And of course, I get affected, not a thick skinned person like most other people in today's world who don't get affected at all. But what I realized is if I follow this quote of Lord Buddha,
Yeah.
I deserve peace. Why should I carry so many bags? You travel all over the world. I have traveled few times left here and there. And you know, life is just like carrying so many bags,
Exactly.
airports to airports.
Yeah. And that is what I say, that, you know, every time we look at a transaction, we have to look at it within that context, in the sense that if we don't seek forgiveness, that's a chain that holds us down. It's the anchor. It's a baggage. Yeah. And the only way to break that anchor, to throw away that problem, to throw away that pain, is to break it. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you know, we say we look for happiness, and we're looking for happiness in the wrong places. What we all are looking for is peace. We're looking for that contentment, which comes from peace. And gaining that peace means that we have to actually disconnect from all the things that gives us that pain. But you see, what the mistake we're making is that we're looking to avoid pain, and we're looking to avoid hurt by escaping it. By escaping it and avoiding it, in fact, we spend a lot of time avoiding.
You're right. You're so right. If I look back at some people and today's people, younger generation, and even the people who are in marriageable age or going through second marriage or want to, they have had a bad divorce. They haven't let go of the previous husband or spouse or wife. Still that hatred towards them. And they want to get married again. But they are not sure whether it's going to be a happy marriage or a bad marriage. So they run to astrologers. They run to Babas. The thing that I've noticed is out of this lot, there is one particular lot who absolutely avoid a relationship because they do not want to get hurt again. So that is maybe escapism, and most of them don't realize this, that it intuitively their life becomes around it. But I had a very important question. Is in this context of relationships, let's assume a boy and a girl, they're broken up. Boy needs to forgive, or girl needs to forgive, or both needs to forgive the other person. I've had last 2.5 years to think a lot on this forgiveness concept. Being in a situation, not one, several, and all having the same pattern. All of a sudden, the same pattern came in my life. Not with one people, but everyone involved. I realized, the only person that I need to change is myself. It took me 2.5 years to get there. And I started working on it. B, if I have to forgive someone, or if I have to forgive 60 people in my whole life's journey, before I do that forgiveness from my heart, there is a component in that forgiveness, which is probably 70% of that component, which is repentance. I need to repent that some of my actions could have hurt this person in this life or previous life. For him or her to create a situation like this where I need to forgive or he needs to forgive. So I need to have that repentance, because in a relationship, always there are two sides of a coin, or at least most of the times. So I need to repent about my direct or indirect actions.
Mm-hmm.
Knowingly I have done a sin, unknowingly I have done a sin or caused harm to my child or my wife or my friend. So that repentance is where I feel is a thrust. What do you feel, Swami?
Okay. So going back to your first point, which is incredibly important, and that is the entire teaching of the Vedas. Very well explained in the Bhagavad Gita. That is, the only person, and I quote you, the only person that that has to change is you. There's nobody else. All the pain, all the suffering in the world, all the successes, all the failures, all the ends, the blacks and the whites, all the extremes. And you can talk about ISIS, you can talk about politics, you can talk about any transaction in the world. Everything under the sun is there for one purpose only. And this is what Vedanta teaches us, one purpose only, which is for you to change yourself, nobody else. If I'm suffering, or if I have great successes, or if I have great failures, yeah, all of that is meant to be there for me to change myself. In the stories that we talked about in the past, through the past videos, and I talked about my highs and lows, which were many, okay? In all of those transactions, and I'm speaking from personal experience, in all of those transactions, there were situations, there were conditioning, there were circumstances, there were the environment. That was the stage for me to allow myself to change. The harder I resisted the change, the harder I avoided the pain, the more I tried to avoid the hurt, the more painful it got. With so many highs and lows, I began to realize very quickly that all I need to do in every situation is learn what to do, what not to do. Is to learn from every situation, from every pain, that I have a lesson to learn here. And what is my lesson? So when someone is hurting me or I'm in a difficult situation, the question I'll ask, what is it that I need to learn? And I can guarantee you this, that the moment I figured out what it is that I need to learn, the problem goes away. I have conversations with Ganeshji. Ganesh, our Lord Ganesh, is there to help us remove the obstacle. Now, while most people go to astrologers and things like people like that, before I got into astrology, I was anti-astrology, as you recall. What I would do is I said, well, if Lord Ganesh is the remover of obstacle, I have this obstacle. And I would pray to him. And I would beg, I said, can you remove the obstacle? What I was trying to do there was to avoid the pain. I didn't ask him to teach me a lesson. After I've gained Vedanta and I came to a point in my life, now when I have a problem, I ask myself, Ganeshji, show me what I need to learn. I don't ask him to remove my pain. I don't ask him to remove the hurt. I say, Ganeshji, please show me what I need to learn. And as soon as I do that, it's amazing. The moment I approach Ganeshji with that humility and with the prayer from my heart, in my own language, in whatever language, sometimes I have conversations with him that are just like the conversations I'm having with you. And I say, Ganeshji, look, I'm suffering right now. And I need you to show me the way, what I need to learn. And when I do that, immediately when I figure out what the lesson is, like magic, the problem goes away. So in astrology, when we look at all these prashchit karmas that are there, all these rituals that we do, they're all there. They're not there for just for useless purpose, or that they're just there so that it's tradition, or that we have to do it because it's our culture. It has nothing to do with that. In fact, all the prashchit karma provided in Jyot, or the rituals that are prescribed in the Vedas, because there are many other rituals that are not prescribed in the Vedas. All of these are meant to give us the wisdom to understand what is going on, the wisdom for me to grow. And once we get that wisdom, we have acceptance. Once we accept the situation, then forgiveness comes. You know, like I give this example many times. I say, in a dark room, how do you remove darkness? In science, and what we try so hard is that we create these gadgets, we come up with theories, we come up with religious organizations to remove darkness. What needs to be done in order for darkness to go away is to bring in light. You do not have to focus on the darkness, you have to focus on the light. In forgiveness, we have to focus on ourselves. If the other person forgives us or not, it's not a problem. It's their baggage. We ask so that we can find that peace in us. We ask for me. I ask for forgiveness, not for that person. I ask for forgiveness for me, so that I can move on. I appreciate the situation. I accept the situation. And this situation was there specifically for my growth. And I show gratitude for that situation. I've talked about my family, my brother. I can say I'm homeless. But I'm so grateful for that opportunity because I have given away my karmic debt. I've paid off my karmic debt. I can say, oh, he took so much money, he got everything from me, he took everything from our family. No. I don't know what I've done. I leave with peace. I leave with the contentment that, yes, whatever may have happened, I'm grateful to have this opportunity to bring an end to that situation. I walk away. And if I'm meant to get that $700,000 worth of property, it will come if it is meant. If it is not, good, I paid my debt. With that, I've sought forgiveness and I move on.
That's wonderful, Swami Ji. And I really believe, the toughest question, many of us have tried forgiving. But if I have to summarize today's discussion, is with a thought, is with a challenge that many of us have faced when we have tried mentally, emotionally, spiritually, tried forgiving someone or the situation, is we often think, has that other person forgiven me? Oh, he hasn't forgiven me. We are stuck there. We are stuck in that situation. Well, I would like to tell our viewers that we would be back. We would be back in the second session with Swamiji. We're taking more practical issues of forgiveness and maybe some tools that Swamiji can offer us in conquering the fear of forgiveness and making it easier in our life. And Swamiji, thanks so much for that Ganpati example, your conversations with Lord Ganpati. Because if we are learning the lesson, the test is over. The obstacle is automatically removed.
Yeah. Yeah, and that has been my life.